today's video, we're going to talk about the ways to search for the best neighborhoods and areas to live in Virginia Beach and the areas around here. And we're starting right now. Hey, my name is Sam Santalone and I'm a real estate agent in the Hampton Roads area that goes from the south part of Virginia Beach all the way up through Williamsburg, and I do videos every week about living and moving to the area. Today we're going to talk about how to find the best areas for you to live in the Virginia Beach area. There are some common questions people often ask me to figure out where those best areas are for them. So we're going to go over some of those questions today, and I'm going to give you some additional guidance that I think might help you in your search based on those questions. So the first question I try to ask people is, what type of living situation do you want? Like, what are your general surroundings that you prefer? Number one is, do you want rural? Two, do you want suburban, like that kind of balanced feel of places, access to stuff, but also not as hustle and bustly of the city? Or do you want city living, like urban living? When we talk about first Virginia Beach, if you're looking for rural, country living, the southeastern part of Virginia Beach is the answer to that question. It has most of those options, and what you're looking for is going to be mostly anywhere from $5 upwards to $800,000-$900,000 in most places in Apungo. 6 is a good round number in that area. If you don't like that section, that southeastern section, I tell people to pivot going over towards the South Chesapeake. That's a very common place to pivot to. Great Bridge, Hickory, and Grassfield school districts are in the southern central parts of Chesapeake, more similar parts to what you might see in Virginia Beach. Going further west, you also see Suffolk, a huge landmass, has a lot of those rural feel elements as well. Now, if you want urban living, this is where it gets a little bit interesting as far as specifically in Virginia Beach. Town center is kind of in the middle of Virginia Beach. That is the closest thing to a downtown that Virginia Beach has. It's kind of small. It's still a downtown, I guess. It's getting there, but it's the closest thing that they have. So if you want to live around there, most of the houses around there are going to be still in residential areas that are more suburbia, because the downtown area was not built in a time period where most of the rest of the housing around it was also developed at the same time. So you'll see a lot of areas around it that were more suburban, and this place was just kind of popped there in the middle. So separate from there, you'll also find Alaskan Road over towards Hilltop, another place that not a downtown at all, just more of a concentration of shops and restaurants. Now, if you don't like that idea, the other alternatives to that are going to be places in, for example, Norfolk. Norfolk's the best for inner city or urban style. Downtown Norfolk and Ghent have the most concentration of that. Moving over also into Old Town Portsmouth might have some of that as well. But the other one is suburbs, right? And Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Hampton, Suffolk, Newport News, but Portsmouth have so much suburbia. It's not even funny. Like, there's so much here. There's just different styles of it. Next question I often ask people is, what kind of vibe do you want in your neighborhood? Because you got the general feel of a whole area, but then you have the actual neighborhood itself, and there are certain nuances that you can be in a urban area, but then in the midst of that, one neighborhood might have a certain feel to it that might be different from the urban area. So some people want to be close to action, but have a certain feel like nature is a good example. A lot of trees. How manicured is the lawn or the lawns, and how manicured are the sidewalks? Are there sidewalks? What's the feel like in the neighborhood? So people want, usually one of the number one comments I hear is a neighborhood that has character, mixed with houses that have character. But they also like the idea of having something with nature in it. Like, for example, just more trees. It doesn't feel like just a bunch of concrete. Now, on the flip side, there are some people that like the idea of something that's uniform. HOAs have this kind of setup, and so because of that, you might have different neighborhoods that you might be attracted to there. So what I say, if someone wants areas with character, here are the answers I give them. If you want character and want to stay in Virginia Beach, the answers often are going to be Little Neck, Great Neck, variations of both of those areas, and also parts of the central section of Chesapeake, of Virginia Beach, near south of Town Center, over here, near Kempsville, as well as up in the northern sections near Thorogood, even close to Chicks Beach, and this whole area near Bayside. There's some spots in there that also have good character as well. And because Virginia Beach does not have the same types of houses as in other cities, you won't find those older houses, like, for example, in Norfolk, that have that real character character feel to it than if you would be in Virginia Beach. So you kind of have to start picking and choosing as to what types of things you prefer if you want to be in Virginia Beach. Price range up in the north section, you're talking minimum $450 to $500 usually, and then it starts bumping up into the $5, $6, $7, up over $1 million, especially near the water. So it really depends on what style house you like and what areas you like. But that's character for Virginia Beach. If people don't like that and they're like, hey, I really want something that has more like the older craftsman style house, then it's where you go into Ghent or you go into downtown Norfolk. Back to that urban feel again, but this is more just not just urban, but the character about the houses here is so different. West Ghent is an awesome spot. You'll have areas in here in the 4s, upwards up into the 5, 6s, 800,000 and up range, depending on the size of the house, and if you want an attached house. So you can get plenty of walking distance in here. You can get all the shops you want. You can get all the sidewalks you want, and the feel of the mature neighborhood in the West Ghent, and even up towards Larchmont, that whole area, over in your Colonial Place, and on this section over near Talbot Park and River Point, over here in Belvedere, all that section over here, the north side, you'll all see that as well. Now, if you don't like that, that's too old. The pivot then goes to character that is really the balance between all the things we talked about. You can get into the south section of Virginia Beach. We have like 80s, 90s style houses that have character. That, it's not real character, but it has, the trees have grown to a point to where it feels like more of an older neighborhood to a certain extent, as well as places over in Great Bridge and Hickory and Grassfield in the south parts of Chesapeake. You can get character cheaper in Deep Creek. You can find that in the southwestern sections of Chesapeake and over even into West Chesapeake as well in Western Branch. Same goes for Western Portsmouth, as well as over into the outskirts of Suffolk and the suburban areas of Suffolk and northeast Suffolk and near Harborview. And if you're getting any value from this video, I would love it if you could hit that like button for the YouTube algorithms. It does really send the video to other people like you that might get value out of this video too. So the next question is, what age house do you like? So we talked about the feel of the neighborhood. Well, then how does that factor in with the house age? So again, old houses going to Norfolk, anything from 1900s upwards to 1950 and 60. You'll see a highest concentration of that in Norfolk, downtown Norfolk, all the way up through the north part near Ocean View. This section in here is loaded with 1940s houses. Great Navy housing close to where all the Navy bases are, Little Creek and NOB. These are in the $300,000 price range, $400,000 price range, and up a little bit. But then if you want to go to 60s houses, 70s, 80s, 90s houses, a lot of them are going to be in the north part of Virginia Beach, in the 60s specifically, through the 80s and 90s. Going down south, you'll see some in the 60s in the middle. Then going down further south from there, you'll see more of them in the 90s, 2000s and up. Newer construction, you'll see more of that in the South Virginia Beach section, south into areas like near Princess Anne. You'll see Courthouse Estates is a very popular 90s neighborhood that is down in the south area as well. Western side, Western Branch feels very similar to North Virginia Beach as far as age of house goes, and also South Chesapeake. So 60s through 2000s, you'll see some new construction in Western Branch and Northeast Suffolk as well. But if you want new construction, I mentioned Virginia Beach doesn't have as much unless you go into the southern parts, the 20 years and younger range, most of them. You'll see them pop up in some places, but it's just not as common. Norfolk has, again, a lot of spots that have them all popped up like individual houses in pre-existing neighborhoods. There are new condos being built near Ocean View, East Beach as well. A lot of places have individual neighborhoods though in very small little pockets of town. Chesapeake has the most widespread neighborhoods that are newer construction neighborhoods anywhere through the south parts of Chesapeake. And then going over into Carrollton and near Smithfield, you'll see more developments that are newer construction as well. Eagle Harbor is a great example of what's in Carrollton. So if you want the balance between Newport News and Norfolk and Chesapeake, you want to be able to have access to both sides without going through either tunnel, I would say Carrollton's a good bet, as well as Smithfield up in this section over here near Isle of Wight. More newer construction is going to be built on this side. If you want newer construction, you got to stay on the outskirts of the area. You'll find more options there.
And that leads us to another question people often ask, which is, what school district do I want to live in?
That can influence everything, right? So some people that want Virginia Beach, they want it because of certain school districts, and they want these certain rankings that they see online. But the alternative to that is they might want the character that Norfolk brings. But the problem is with Norfolk, the school districts aren't as high ranked as you will see in Virginia Beach. There are two contrasting spots. So it turns into a trade-off. If you want the character of Norfolk, you might have to give up the school district ranking you might like in Virginia Beach. Now, it's not that every school in Virginia Beach is high ranked, but a lot of people do want certain school districts in that area, and because of that, they have to pick certain spots because you're kind of left with the style of house and the style of neighborhood that is in those school districts. So if you don't like what you find in Virginia Beach and want to pivot to other areas that people like to compare school districts, South Chesapeake, Hickory, Grassfield, and Great Bridge are the three, I'd say, the highest ranked. There are other school districts there you can get good value for, Indian River and Deep Creek, but also Western Branch is the pivot. If people want certain rankings and they want in the south section of Chesapeake, they can't find what they want, then I often say pivot over to Western Branch. Now, Portsmouth, similar situation with Norfolk. People aren't often drawn there for schools. So that's where you find the character you like in Portsmouth in parts, but then you have to pivot if you don't want the certain school district. Same goes similarly to Suffolk. The school districts often drive the prices in this whole Hampton Roads area, and based on what price range you want, it's going to definitely influence what school districts are available in certain size houses.
And people also often ask, where are the places with high jet noise?
And jet noise is a big deal in certain parts of the area, specifically parts of Virginia Beach. Basically, Oceana Naval Air Station is real noisy, which is on the far eastern section of Virginia Beach, right here. Based on where the jets take off, fly, circle around, you're going to hear a ton of jet noise in certain parts of the city. And you'll see, I'm going to overlay the ACU's jet noise zone maps to show you in certain parts of the area what neighborhoods have bigger issues with noise. And if you don't like noise, or you don't like the idea of planes flying around and not being able to hear people talk for 20 seconds at a time, 8, 10, 15 times in a day sometimes, you might not like to be near Oceana. And so anything southeastern close to Oceana, and also in the northeast section of Virginia Beach closer to the beach, and also towards south in the area of Great Neck, that area will have jet noise, and it will definitely influence your experience and how much you might prefer to be over on that side. If you don't mind it, you might find what you're looking for. Otherwise, I'd pivot away from there and go towards the rest of Virginia Beach or to other cities, as well as parts away from the Fentress Airfield, which is over here in Chesapeake. This is the one that people don't talk about as much, but also has a lot of jet noise, at least in the general vicinity of the Fentress Airfield right here. So South Chesapeake, parts of it will have some jet noise there too. Next thing people tell me is they're looking for certain places like, hey, I don't want to be in an area that has a high risk flood zone. Virginia Beach often has the reputation of being a high flood area. Probably, I think, because there's just a lot of water around. But I think the reality really is that it's not as big of a problem as people might think it to be. And there are some places that have localized flooding issues, like in central Virginia Beach. There have been some specific spots that have had problems in the past. And also near Asheville Park, you've heard stories about that. You may have heard me talk about that before, about Asheville Park having some flooding in their neighborhood in that southeastern corner. Otherwise, there were some parts like around water a little bit, or some specific intersections, even over near towards the beach a little bit. But in general, it's not a huge widespread problem. So if you're looking for something that does not need flood insurance, you'll find a lot of options in Virginia Beach. If you don't want to go in Virginia Beach, you can pivot to other parts of Hampton Roads, but Norfolk actually has the biggest concentration of areas that have the highest risk flood zones to me, especially on the western sections of Norfolk and parts of the center part as well in some spaces. Chesapeake has a few, Suffolk has a few, they all have some, even up into the peninsula as well, but it's not as widespread as what you'll find mostly in the Norfolk section, and also parts of Hampton and some sections near Langley as well. If you want more details about living in Virginia Beach or other cities around Virginia Beach, I've got videos here that you can check out as well. But if you have any more questions about this area, want to relocate here, have more questions to me, let me know. I've got my contact information in the description. You can reach out to me at any point and I'll do whatever I can to help you relocate to the area. And I will see you on the next video.